Romy Phillips, and I'm going to guide you through this very short session on 6 poses to help relieve lower leg tension. And this should take about 15 minutes total, but you can also start to, once you learn the sequence, you can maybe practice it a little bit longer if you need to. There are poses you can hold for a little bit longer. So I'm just going to guide you through the short sequence of 6 poses that we're going to be doing. You should have your props ready, so 2 blocks, a pillow, a strap. Now if you don't have a yoga strap, you can always use a belt or a scarf. You also need a blanket and a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, I highly recommend that you buy one and purchase one at some point. So we're going to start off first with the low lunges, right? Just to kind of ease into our practice. Nothing is hard here. I suggest putting a blanket under your knees and your shins on your mat. I'm using a yoga mat, but you can be on the floor for this. A carpet is fine. And you're going to come into a kneeling position and just start first by placing your foot at the top of the mat, hands on the blocks. Make sure your knee is directly over your heel. And you're just going to use these blocks to kind of support yourself and move back and forth. And like ease into stretching out your quadriceps, all right? And then just hold for a moment and lift your chest, breathing. And if you want, you can lower the blocks if you need to. And this just kind of starts to help ease some of that tension out of the hips, especially the hamstrings and the gluteals and your quads. And then holding for several breaths. And I'll talk about the breathing as we go through these poses. There's a very specific way I want you to breathe, but right now, let's just start off with a little bit of movement and holding for a moment. Okay, now change legs. First, I want you to move back and forth, so maybe you can use the higher elevation and just move, shifting back and forth. And then you're going to hold and then feel yourself release tension in your quadriceps, especially the hip flexors pretty much. And then hold. Notice how I'm getting lower on the blocks, lifting my chest up, maintaining this extension in your upper back. Breathe into the chest, inhaling and exhaling. Good, now slowly release. And we're setting up for the next pose. All right, so the next pose is Virasana, hero's pose. I'm starting with my knees slightly apart. So from the front, my knees are slightly apart like this. And then I'm going to turn around and sit in between my heels on blocks. Now you may or may not need the blocks, but I'm suggesting you use them initially. The whole idea is that we want to make everything comfortable. We don't want to strain our joints, create like this sense of space so that we're not straining anything. So if I turn around, I show you how I'm sitting in between my heels, right? Like that. So I want you to sit. You can stay on the blanket if you want. And then place your hands on top of your thighs. Close your eyes for a moment. So now I'm just going to talk about the breathing. In yoga, we have a phrase called Ujjayi breath, where we emphasize the inhalation and start to match the rhythm and tempo of the inhalation and exhalation. So you're going to start inhaling through your nose, and your mouth is closed as you exhale. And just begin to listen to the sound of the breath. So it's a very calming, soothing sound. You might hear this soft rushing sound in the back of the throat. And then holding for 5 complete breaths. So just to kind of create a rhythm or tempo or time frame, we're going to be holding most of these poses for 5 complete inhalations and exhalations. Okay, now let's add a shoulder opener. So extend your arms to the side and then cross your arms at your elbows. So Garandasana arms. So we're adding a little bit of shoulder stretch in here just to release the tension in the upper back, shoulders, and neck. Now, if you cannot clasp your fingers, you can always hold on to your shoulders or just cross your arms and hold on at one at a time. But you'll be very surprised at how quickly you start to gain mobility in the upper arms and shoulders from here. So start to just lift up, and it might take a few weeks, a couple months, it doesn't matter. The whole idea is that you make it an effort and an attempt. And keep lifting up from the lumbar spine up through the crown of your head, inhaling. Exhaling, just feel that tension release down into your legs, releasing the tension. Okay, now release your arms. You're going to recross the opposite arm on top. So notice how I extend my arms to the side. Opposite arm is on top. It might feel awkward or different. Typically, one shoulder is tighter than the other, or one side of the body tends to be tighter depending on which one you're using the most. And then 5 breaths here too. And then slowly release. Good, and then pause here. So just another slight variation to this. Sometimes I come up and I take one leg in front, and then I sit back down on one leg just to kind of isolate the top of this thigh. Hold for several breaths. It really does help to address the whole lower limb from the waist down, your thighs, your knees, your ankles. All right, so 5 breaths with one leg at a time, bent in Virasana. Good, and then changing legs. All right, so the other leg is bent and the other leg is in front. Keep your spine neutral, your head level. Good, now come onto your knees. And before we actually do the next pose, which is also similar, it's in the sequence. So first, just straighten out your knees, press to the ball of your foot, and just take a moment to stretch out your legs. All right, so I find that after doing this sequence, like I said, I feel so much better, releases any pain, tension in my legs. So the next pose is Gomukhasana prep. So from the front, I'll show you how it works. So you start off, you're going to probably need a block or two. You start off with your one leg crossing over like this, and you're sitting in between your heels. So if I turn around, I'll show you how that looks. I take one leg and cross it over like this. And then I'm sitting in between my heels, so I can take a block and sit like this. Right? Now everyone's different. You might need 1 or 2 blocks and a blanket. The whole idea is you bring the floor up, right? You want to bring the floor up. So I'm going to just turn to the side like this so you can see me a little bit. I'm sitting on one block, turn this way, and I'm just going to lean forward and let my head come down towards my knee. Press into my sit bones. And as you hold this, you may feel that you can adjust this block. I feel like I can go a little bit lower. And this is very good for stretching like the outer hips, the gluteals, right? And your outer thighs, even the lower back. 5 breaths here. And then as you start to develop a self-practice, you may hold these poses longer than the 5 breaths that I'm teaching you right now. You can hold them for a minute or two, whatever you feel is appropriate, until you feel that the muscles are feeling that you've let go of a lot of tension. I should say sensing the muscles have relaxed more. Okay, now come up onto your knees and just recross your legs. Opposite leg is crossing in front. And you're sitting in between your heels. Now this side is much tighter, so I'm going to have to raise this block. And my right side tends to be much tighter than the left. And then that's okay. That's just, we all have some imbalances based on how we function throughout our day. What things we're carrying, let's say on the right side, if you're left-handed or right-handed. Okay, now slowly coming up and straighten out your legs for a moment. Just sit and straighten out your legs. I'm just going to lie down here on my back, and the blanket is by my hip. Now bend your knees and place your hands on your shins and hold on. Allow your thighs to move towards your chest. Okay, now place your feet on the floor. Pause. And we're placing a strap on the right foot. And reach up through the foot and heel. Let your left leg press down. Your inner left thigh is moving down towards the floor as your right leg reaches up towards the ceiling. And you're taking a few breaths here. So you can adjust the leg to be lower if you really tighten the hamstrings. You can bend this leg as well to modify it. There's always a variation to modify, but I'm just showing you the pose, and maybe at some other point I can make a video on modifications. Good. Now from here, we're going to move the leg dynamically. We slowly exhale, bringing the leg over. Notice how the blanket stops me from going too far. And then inhale, bring the leg back up. Exhale, leg over to the side. And then inhale, leg comes back up. Exhale, leg over to the side, left shoulder down, left hip down. And slowly come back up. Now let's just bring the leg over to the side and stay here. Pause for a few breaths. So this is a challenge, but very good for us. We want to stabilize the body by pressing down on the left side of the shoulder, left hip, left thigh. Push through the ball of your foot. And then come back up to center. Place both ends of the strap in the left hand. And you're going to do a slight diagonal. So your outer hip and thigh stretch, and you look out over your right shoulder. Good. And then slowly release and place your foot on the floor and pause. All right, notice the difference between the right and left side. Sometimes you can just pause before you do the other side. So you don't have to be in a rush to do any of this, right? So now let's do the other side. Bend your knees for a moment, move the blanket over to the other side. And then we're going to place the strap on the left foot. Reach your leg up towards the ceiling. The right thigh presses down. And you're taking a few breaths here. Good, now from here, we're going to move the leg dynamically. So there's the exhale down. Notice how the blanket stops me from going too far. Inhale up. Exhale down, keep your right hip down, right thigh down. Inhale back up. And like you can do like several of these to the side. Like I think I did 4 on the first side. It could be 3 or 4. And then you're going to come back up. And then you're going to come back down and stay here with the right shoulder and the right hip pressing down as well as your right thigh. Take deep breaths in and feel yourself release tension in your inner thighs, right? Your adductors. Okay, now come back up to center, place both ends of the strap in the right hand, and you're going to slightly twist diagonally across, not too deep. Push through your heel, outer thigh, and hip stretch. And release, bring your leg down to the floor, and pause here on your back for a moment. So you don't have to be in any rush to do the next pose, but I'm just going to carefully set up the next pose, all right? Good. And then roll to your side to rise up. All right. I will make a separate video showing you how to do this at the wall. So Viparita Karani, we can always do a variation where we're on our backs and use a block and just be in the middle of the room, basically. So this is a variation of Viparita Karani. It's an inversion, very simple. We need a block. So you're going to roll down onto your back. Your knees are bent first. And just relax. Now lift your hips up off the floor and place a block underneath your sacrum. Make sure your chest is lifting up and your shoulders are pinned down and the back of your arms are pressing down. Now notice how I'm going to keep my chest lifting up and there's space here under my lumbar spine. Lift your legs up and then we pause. Now some of you may have tight hamstrings and need to bend your knees. Whatever variation you can do, just make sure you can try to get these knees over your hips and not strain like this. You want to get them here so you can really relax. And then if you can straighten your legs, fine. And like I said, I have a image of me doing this at the wall, right? Which is also very relaxing. That's the more traditional way of doing this pose, but this is a modification, a little bit more accessible for a lot of people. And we'll hold this. Now this pose can be held for up to a minute or 2 or several minutes. For this video, I'm just going to demonstrate for about half a minute or so. And just breathe softly. Notice how you can breathe into your chest here. And then keeping the legs kind of soft at the knees. You don't have to really force them straight. You can just relax your ankles and relax your knee joints a little bit. But keep the chest lifted. It's most important. Okay, now after holding this for the length of time that you feel that you need to, you let your feet come to the floor and pause, relax. And if you're at the wall, you just bend your knees and roll to your side, let your head rest on top of your arm. Okay, now take the block away and roll down onto your back and pause and just relax here for a moment. Okay, so now our final pose, roll to your side. We're setting up for Supta Konasana. So you'll need your blocks. You take your block, one block there. This one is like this. And you need your bolster and your pillow. So you take the bolster, place it like this. And then the pillow is here. So I'm going to scoot this back a little bit more. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do a modification. Traditionally with this pose, you bind the legs with the strap. I'll maybe demonstrate that in another video, but now I'm just going to keep it simple. We're going to use a blanket, right? We're going to take this blanket and fold it like this so it's a long vertical strip. And then we're going to lie back with our soles of the feet together and wrap this blanket around your shins and ankles like this. You have some support. And then we're going to lie down and let our head rest on the pillow. My shoulder blades are pulling together. My chest expands. And I'll guide you through a little bit of breathing. So this is a very good pose for addressing the lower body as well. It's technically a hip opener and a restorative pose, but we can also breathe fully into our chest and belly. So inhale lightly through your nose and exhale completely. And then feeling that the breath expands fully into the chest. Notice how we have the space to breathe into the sides of the rib cage. And then exhale completely, feeling the exhalation move down into your abdomen, your belly, pelvis. And just continue working with moving the breath in and out of your body, lightly through your nose. And then feeling that breath moving down into your legs. Continue breathing here. So this pose can be held for several minutes. Sometimes I lay here long enough to just to feel myself relax, or whatever is aching or painful, and my legs will just start to ease out with the exhalation over a period of time. Now from here, if you want, you can stay like this. Like I said, you could pause the video if you wanted to and stay here for several minutes. But I also encourage you just to stay on your back. And then when you're ready to come out of this, you stay on your back and straighten out your legs for your Savasana. And lie here for a few moments. And feel free to cover yourself with a blanket and just let your breathing be soft and natural at this point without any effort. And then lying here for as long as you wish in your Shavasana.